Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Some satellite imagery today shows us the cutoff low that is sitting over the four corner states and how it is eventually going to get pulled into the mainstream flow that's coming into the Pacific Northwest. But before that takes place, there's quite a bit of resistance to this pattern changing here in the near term. In other words, we're going to see this slowly move north. It's going to pull a lot of moisture up with it into parts of the Central Plains, but it's going to take a while to get over the eastern part of the Corn Belt, where, as you can see today, from the eastern Corn Belt to the southeast, higher atmospheric pressure is most certainly in place. A couple of other things to take note of here, just as we start to see the sunset coming in here on Monday evening, we do see the wildfire smoke spreading throughout parts of the southwest here of the Mojave Desert and the southern tip of the San Joaquin Valley. We got some much cooler air that's coming into the west, though, and we're going to take a close look at that in a few moments here. First, those surface winds. If you noticed, I'll go back to this quickly. You can also see some of the fires coming here out of the northern Rockies. If I go back and forth, just take a close look there. That's because we have very strong winds in this area this afternoon. You can see right in through here, and this is all out ahead of a deeper trough that's coming into the Pacific Northwest. There's also strong winds coming around a high pressure cell over the southeast. And you're going to hear me say that quite a bit, high pressure over the southeast, because we're going to see a lot of that over the coming days. In fact, these strong winds out of the southwest here across my home state of Illinois did produce or help fan the flames of a fire near the town of Monticello, which happened in a field today. So we're going to watch that carefully. Now, other than that, I got to show you where Sam is going right here. I got some good news about Sam's eventual path as it heads toward Bermuda. And then if we just come over here to the North Pacific, let's just take a quick global tour. We need to see how much longer we can keep the high pressure cell off of the coast, allowing more lows to come out of the Gulf of Alaska and over toward the northwestern British Columbia. That's been the state of the atmosphere since about mid-August. It's been doing that. And there's one other thing, this large typhoon here. It's that time of year where we have to watch for these typhoons to get pulled into the jet stream flow, potentially impacting our longer-term pattern. Now back to the Atlantic, we do have two new systems we watched over the weekend develop. These are yet to be classified anything other than a tropical disturbance, but as you can see, the National Hurricane Center is giving each of them an 80% chance of developing. They could take the last two names on our name list because we did have subtropical storm Teresa named over the weekend. So we'll see if this could become Victor or Wanda, our last two named systems. Sam is expected to maintain major hurricane status, category 3 or stronger, and then move in this direction. Now, we talked last week about what it would take to get this over toward the East Coast, but given the development of troughs in this area, we're going to keep Sam out of our open ocean with a possible turn to the west here late in the forecast time period into the Canadian Maritimes. So keep an eye on that. Now, coming back over to the Pacific, what we've seen so far in the month of September has been favoring an open flow pattern, no major blocking. We have high pressure here, high pressure there, but the flow just to the north of those two high pressure cells has been really just kind of scooting here around the southern edge of this low pressure system. This is all the troughs in the Gulf of Alaska. Now, what I'm going to answer by the end of this brief video is what I think is going to happen to this trough feature by the time we get past that, maybe that second week in October. I think we're going to be looking out for a pattern change. What will we be changing from? Well, this is what we'll be changing from. We've had a very strong rain shadow effect here in the Rockies, which is why much of Montana has been so dry. It's been drier in the southwest, and it's been very dry in the southern plains. This is going to change here first. And we're also going to be bringing in more moisture in through parts of the hard red winter wheat belt and eventually into the western Corn Belt. The holdout will be the eastern Corn Belt into the southeast, and that is an area that we need to dry down more and get more harvest going because it's been quite wet. In fact, you get east of the Mississippi River, other than Wisconsin and Illinois, but the only other place that's been consistently dry has been this little corner of North Carolina. Just something to think about there. And to compare this to our latest top 16 inches of soil moisture, you can see that that region in the southern plains, through the high plains, and the western Corn Belt has been quite dry as of late. Now, again, the thing we're going to be watching here in the near term is what happens to this very fast and open flow that we've seen out of the Gulf of Alaska, where the ridging has been here north of Hawaii, with deep troughs of lower pressure in place here, helping this pattern move. Because in the near term, it's going to keep doing that, and it's going to take up this low here and pull it to the north. And what that ends up doing is this. Are you ready? multi-model comparison here. I got the European on the right and the GFS on the left. The deep trough that's in the northwest, it cuts through Tuesday and into Wednesday. And after that, it goes into a bit of a reset pattern. Targets more British Columbia, drier in the west. All right. Now, in the east, take a look at the trough that's developing here. This is the GFS, this is the European. What's important about the differences here is that the GFS is now grabbing SAM sooner, pulling it into that trough circulation, whereas the European leaves it lingering. And the net effect is, take a look at this, by Saturday, we've now pulled that trough in, we've pulled SAM into this trough in the GFS, but haven't even touched it yet with the European. The net effect is the GFS wants to pull SAM into the Canadian Maritimes, and the European keeps the two pieces disconnected. Now, what happens behind that is big ridging develops, and we're going to talk about what that does to the temperatures. But notice this. Into early next week, do you see how more aggressive the GFS is in developing a trough here where it's not in the European? That's a major precipitation pattern difference I'm going to show you in a few moments between the two models. But that's how things shape up getting out there about a week. We'll step into week 2 in a few moments. So the 18Z high-res NAM, well, if I just rock back and forth late this afternoon into this evening, here's the upper level over the Four Corners. Here's the main frontal boundary pushing the moisture through the Columbia Basin, here into Oregon and eventually into Idaho and Montana. Could get some scattered showers and storms there. We'll like to see that in this area. But this is by tomorrow night. Broadly scattered storms here. When does this emerge into the plains? Well, you could get some storms in southern parts of the plains here in Oklahoma, Texas by Tuesday night. But as we press out through the day on Wednesday, getting into Wednesday night and Thursday morning, that's when we're going to watch for the storms to really finally get here. So until then, this area not seeing much precipitation at all. It's going to be Wednesday night to Thursday morning that occurs. Now let's just stack all this up before we get into a few more of those details beyond this Wednesday. So we see that through, let's just pause it there, Thursday morning, that initially the moisture comes out of the upper level low here and starts to move north. That draws in the moisture here through the Gulf Coast and into the Central Plains, while the deeper trough cuts into the northwest. But in this area, we're going to get through much of this week without much precip. We watching? Here's Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening. That was quick. Here's Friday morning, afternoon, and evening. And it's only by Saturday early morning that we've started to move this into the western Corn Belt. We continue to stay dry where higher pressure is really holding, this area here with drier conditions. And it won't start to rain there possibly until Sunday into Monday and Tuesday of next week. I'm talking about this area right here. So that's a pretty wide open window in this region to get a lot of field work done. And as I said at the beginning, high pressure hangs on over the southeast, and that's why we continue to stay drier that region. So another way to look at this is look at the probability of getting another inch of rainfall. This is what it looks like through the next 10 days. So it's coming up through Texas in the Red River Valley, a place that's been dry. It's into the Central Plains, hard red winter wheat belt here. And then outside of that, those chances are relatively low. You just notice that here. So from this point, why don't we just see it step by step? And we've already gotten out through Wednesday evening. There we go. Now what you're going to notice by just looking at the European model here is that Wednesday into Thursday, we're going to keep the central U.S. stormy. There's another front that comes through the northwest, but that's the main action happening right here. This is now overnight on Thursday, getting into Friday. Now, a big model difference between the GFS and the European is that the European hangs onto this high pressure cell here for a while, keeping the moisture farther to the west. See that? From Texas into the western Corn Belt. That's Friday evening. It keeps it there even into Saturday afternoon and evening and doesn't allow it to move here over this section of the country until probably Sunday night into Monday morning. And then it presses it farther to the east. You see, the GFS isn't doing that. And that's why when we look out there over the next 7 days from the European, you get this look in terms of total accumulated precipitation. But here's the GFS. Now again, European next 7 days, GFS. What's the difference? Well, these colors are wetter for the European model. These colors are wetter for the GFS. And so because the GFS brings the systems farther to the east more quickly, it is wetter in the Mid-South, in the Tennessee Valley, in the Ohio Valley, and in Illinois. The European is wetter in the plains. The GFS is also wetter in Texas. And you can see what it's doing with SAM versus what the European is doing with SAM. Some big model differences here just over the next 7 days. But interestingly enough, both models, by the time we get to day 10, want to give you this look. Broader ridging here with troughs off the west coast. That's what we started with this pattern, right? And it wants to keep that through much of week 2. Here's October 10th, 11th, 12th. See those troughs coming in here? And if that's the case, the week 2 pattern, this is too dry. It'll be wetter in the northwest than what's advertised here. And if these troughs move through, that'll keep this area with a shot at getting precipitation every 3 to 4 days. Where do I think it will be drier? I do agree with the models that it'll be drier over the southeast. But this is normal October rainfall. My big question I'm going to answer in a moment here is how long does that last? First, temperatures. Month-to-date temperatures have favored where that big ridge is sat here, warmer than normal conditions over the Four Corner states back to California. It's only been recently that we've developed a trough in this area. It's been cooler over the southeast. But watch what we're going to do with the temperatures in the near term. We've got frost and freeze warnings out for the Snake River Valley, for this part of Oregon and this part of California. And that's because the temperatures behind the front that's coming through, you ready? Here's Monday's highs. We've already seen these. We were breaking records here in the midsection of the country. Well, there's Tuesday, very hot in the northern plains, but look at the cold air coming in on the backside of that, behind that front. So it moves the warmer weather to the east by Thursday, getting into Friday and Saturday. But we know that there's a ridge rebuilding here in the midsection of North America, which is why the temperatures rise again. So major whiplash of temperatures here in the northern plains and in the west throughout this week. Day 5 through 10, let's shrink this so we can see it. This is the latest from the European. We do see the warmer air moving east, and we also see right here along the front range cooler than normal temperatures through the high plains, while the west recovers. Day 10 through 15, this is the beginning of where I think the pattern change is going to be. Those troughs keep developing here, and there's broad ridging here in the midsection of the country, but lately, the temperatures have trended cooler in the models. Now again, I'm talking about mid-October here, and the reason why is because of this. After spending better than 45 days, the MJO has been in phases 2 and 3 over the Indian Ocean or coming over toward Australia into phase 4. We're now starting to see it move. That means the way that the heat and moisture and total energy content of the tropics is about to move is going to shove things farther to the east over the Pacific Ocean. And it's not been here since, we got to go all the way back to to the beginning of August. That was when it was here last. And when that occurs, we start to rebuild ridges here according to our historical data. And troughs of low pressure and cooler weather come through the central and eastern part of the United States. Now, I'm not talking about the front half of October. This is the second half of October that I think that can occur. And this is what it does to the temperatures. This is a 30-day sliding window. And what you're going to notice is, you're going to see that as I take this out to the end of October and the beginning of November, see how the cooler air begins to advance farther away from the west? That's the transition we're going to see. Now, what about the precipitation side of it? Well, let's just go back here and look at the next 30 days. We do see wetter than normal conditions here, but this is not from the stationary front that gets stuck. This is from what we're getting in just in the next couple of weeks. The models are just carrying that forward, as I've been telling you they've been doing. But going out there farther, I do buy into this. Wetter conditions in the northwest, troughs ejecting into the central plains, into the Corn Belt. And that would give us at times better chances at seeing wetter than normal fall conditions. But this is not harvest stopping weather. And that's what's crucial about this forecast. And in the background, always, La Nina continues to churn. As I've been telling you, it's about half the strength of the one we saw last year. But the Southern Oscillation Index is still positive, and the trade winds are still strong. So this will be the main story once we get into November and December and early winter. I'll keep you up to date on all of it, okay? Appreciate your attention. We'll talk to you again very soon. Thanks.